Welcome back to another segment on this Crossfire TRION 250 multi-process welder. I've completed the setup and I've run some test beads on the Mig process and the stick process. Not going to go into too much detail on the actual welding, but we're going to do some first impressions on the overall machine after the setup and how those first few welds went. So after setting it up and spending a day playing with the machine, what have I learned? Overall build quality on the machine, I think, is fine, with the exception of the handle seems like a bit of a afterthought, and it's got a bit of wiggle to it. That's the only thing that, when you touch it, feels a little cheap. Everything else feels pretty good. Now, as with anything that comes with like a lot of accessories, which is what's nice about this machine, it came with everything you need to go. Sometimes the things you get included are not of the best quality. Not that these regulators are terrible, but they're pretty basic analog regulators, not the flow ball style, but they do the job. But one problem I did have was these hoses that are included. This one was fine. This one here was not fully crimped on both ends, and so I was getting some leaking. You didn't notice it at first, but if you happen to wiggle the hose, it was leaking. Luckily, I was able to re-crimp them with a 2-gauge cable crimper, and they're working okay now. The machine itself, setup was super easy, pretty standard MIG setup. The quad roller system seems to be good and solid, and I think will provide very smooth wire feed, and connecting the MIG torch was pretty standard and easy to do. But one failing is this is a 10-pound spool of wire, and on the smaller machines, you know, they will accept the 1 pound or the 10-pound spools. Usually you can adapt. This here does not appear to have any kind of adapter for a 10-pound spool. I had to put in a chunk of PVC pipe in order to get it to work with this spool properly. So that's a bit of a sort of missed trick there. It's definitely was a bit annoying. You go to set it up for the first time, and certainly, you know, there's no reason why you shouldn't be able to run a smaller spool. Maybe you wouldn't want to run a 1-pound spool in this machine, but a 10-pound spool, certainly there'd be no reason why you shouldn't be able to run a 10-pound spool in this machine. So a little bit of an oversight on their part, I think, there. Or there's a part missing, but it's really hard to tell because the manual is so poor that there is no way to know, you know, what's supposed to be in there. So that was really the biggest disappointment when setting up this machine, is that that spool was not a perfect fit, and no kind of adapter for it. As far as the functions, front panel functions all work well, and I find the interface is very intuitive. It works well, and very easy to adjust on the fly with these knobs. The gas button and the spool button are obviously for setup purposes. When you're in the process, hit the gas button, gas comes on and stays on. which then allows you to adjust your flows. And the wire spool button is obviously used mostly when you're first loading wire into the gun. You load it in, fire that up, and it'll run out the wire to the end of the gun. Home and back buttons, pretty self-explanatory. Now, I have run a little bit on the MIG process. I'm not going to go into crazy detail there because there's plenty of videos out there about MIG welding. But as far as this machine is concerned, the MIG torch, again, I'm a hobbyist. To me, this torch feels really good. Sturdy, heavy duty, and it welded really nice. Easy to maneuver, and cabling and everything is good and heavy. And the first few test welds that I did on the MIG process with mild steel, really impressed with the arc performance, nice and smooth. And I switched from some 18 gauge plates to doing some Schedule 40 square tube, and the Smart MIG settings seem to work perfectly. I got good performance on both those settings. I also did some stick welding with it. The electrode holder is just a basic holder, nothing too surprising there, but it does feel good and heavy. Good quality cable. And the stick welding performance, I was also very impressed with. The arc performance was really nice. Not too violent of an arc. I was welding on some rusty old square tubing, and it handled it beautifully. That could be, admittedly, most of the stick welding I did before was AC stick welding, whereas this is a DC, which would give you better amperage with a less violent arc than AC. So first impressions on the MIG and the stick performance have been good. I haven't done any TIG welding with it yet, but during the setup I did discover something that I was a little disappointed with, is that I know it's a DC TIG, it's a lift TIG, I understand that, but I was very surprised that this machine does not control the gas flow at all. I know with the lower end TIG machines, you just turn the gas on at the wand, which is fine, but I really don't see why they wouldn't have this machine control the gas on and off, and even have controls for a little pre-gas and post flow, because it seems so simple to me for them to do that, because everything is here to do it. They could have used the ports for the spool gun could easily have been used for the TIG process as well. In fact, the TIG foot pedal plug is down here as well. All it would take is a little bit of programming, I would think, in the logic to allow the TIG process to activate the same solenoid which allows the argon to flow for the spool gun to be used for the TIG process. So that was a little I was a little surprised to find that. Basically, to TIG with this machine, you would just have to connect the torch directly to the bottle. Again, not the end of the world, but just a little puzzling, because I think it would be a very easy thing for this machine to do. In reality, I probably won't be doing a lot of TIG with this machine, but yeah, just something to be aware of if you're looking at this machine. So I'm going to end it there. I'll probably do a little more detailed segment on the spool gun, because that's probably something a little that people are a little more interested in seeing. But for now, first impressions, overall satisfied.